Hi all, welcome to Lorelei Talks. My name is Lorelei, and I love talking about history, politics, and current events through a progressive lens. If that sounds like your cup of tea, feel free to subscribe to this channel. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting my work at patreon.com/Lorelei Talks. That's patreon.com/LORELAITALKS. Welcome to Lorelei Talks. My name is Lorelei, and today we're going to be talking about immigration and customs enforcement, aka ICE, in Texas. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please tell the folks who you are, your pronouns, all of that.
Yeah, I'm Sam Berger. I use they, them pronouns. Honestly, I've been trying to figure out, I'm in the process of figuring out what I am. I don't know. Right now I'm doing photography. I'm writing a book. I've been doing some videography stuff for my girlfriend. So I'm doing a bunch of different things.
Tell us about being from Texas and your upbringing and why you chose to leave Texas.
Yeah, so I'm from San Antonio originally. I am Mexican American, so my mother was born in Mexico, and I believe she came over when she was 8 or 9. And then my dad's mother is back a million I like to call them Tex-Mex, honestly, because they're not really from Mexico and they're not really from Texas. They're more from the border specifically.
Yeah, we didn't jump the border jumped us kind of thing.
Yeah, where it's if you look back, they're just there for a million generations. And then my dad's dad is from Germany, so he's also an immigrant. So that's why I look like this. But so yeah, I think that I grew up in a weird situation where I think this also speaks to the autism too, but I just assumed that everywhere was brown. I grew up living in San Antonio, going to the border to go to Mexico to visit family. When I moved to Austin, I ended up moving to Austin for college. I was leaving San Antonio. I remember being I had a little bit of a culture shock moment, just because there were it was just so much more diverse here. I had been around brown people, I'd been around black people, but I hadn't really been around Asian people. I hadn't seen that many white people ever in my life before. It was just a really different experience. And I think because I'm white, it's I feel there was always kind of a weird expectation from white people of how I was supposed to act. And I never got the clue. So I don't know how I'm supposed to act. I grew up in a different culture.
Yeah.
So I think it's been difficult for me to come to terms with my own Mexicanness, because I personally don't feel I have as much access to the culture because of my skin color. So it's it's the weird biracial kind of thing, because technically I'm not biracial. I'm white, and my mother was born in Mexico, and I do have some indigenous blood, but I don't have enough, according to the United States, to claim it. I feel me and some of my closest friends are what America was supposed to be, where we're a mix of a bunch of different cultures. We can speak a bunch of different languages. We have very diverse and eclectic palates, but we also are American. And so we don't have as much access to the Americanness, and we don't have, it's the third culture kid kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But because of the way I look, I think that people just assume I'm white and treat me that way.
And I'm curious, you talked about moving to Austin for undergrad. What did you end up studying, and how did that come to inform your worldview?
Yeah, I ended up studying international relations because my parents actually didn't teach me Spanish. My mother was scared to teach me Spanish because she grew up, I think she said she came over when she was 9, and they told her that because she didn't speak English, she was stupid. So they put her in kindergarten as a 9-year-old. I remember her talking about how embarrassing that was, an embarrassing experience of being so much older than everybody. And so I think she was scared to teach me Spanish because she didn't want me to have an accent. And then my dad's mother told me that when she spoke Spanish in school, the nuns would hit them with rulers. I felt sometimes I was kept from my culture as a preventative measure.
Yeah, protection.
So that way I could be American enough and be able to kind of pass in a way.
Yeah.
Which was ironic because I still don't pass. So for my undergrad, I ended up studying international relations, which I think made a lot of sense. So I ended up learning Spanish a little bit later. And then once I got to college, I learned Portuguese and I went to Brazil. I studied abroad in Paris. I was really, really lucky to be able to I mean, that was my student loans, was those study abroad experiences. And I don't regret it at all. And I think it was like, I think I just really, as a neurodivergent person, really needed to figure out my context in the world. Like, I was like, where do I exist? Like, because I don't feel like I'm represented anywhere. Like, that third culture kid is always very confused. We're always like, I'm not really from the hometown. I'm not really from like America, but I'm also not really from the other culture. And so I think international relations was my way of trying to figure out like, where am I in all of this? And also, I mean, the thing that the conservatives are scared of happened. Like, I was radicalized at university.
Don't tell anyone which university was this.
I mean, the University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah, shocking.
Shout out to Dr. Shout out to Dr. Those are the people that radicalized. Because what ended up happening was that I took international relations with a minor in Latin American studies. And then from there, I ended up in a lot of Afro-Latino classes because I was like, I don't remember seeing Black people when I was younger in Mexico. Why aren't there Black people? Like, where are they? I know they must be here. And so I learned a lot about like the history of the Black people from North America and Central America. And from there kind of led me into race studies classes, gender studies classes. And before I knew it, I was learning about racism and systemic injustice and all of the things that were happening, not just to my community, which I like knew about from San Antonio. San Antonio is a relatively liberal leaning city. So even growing up, people were talking about immigration and things like that. But it was still conservative in the sense that the Catholic Church has a stranglehold on Latino people. You know what I mean? It's like, there's still a lot of gender roles. There's still a lot of expectations. But as a girl, I was still expected to like go to school, become a lawyer, have kids, settle down, get a house, provide my family with grandchildren.
So today we're going to be talking about immigration, and specifically immigration in Texas. So just give me a high-level overview of what you're passionate about and what you want to draw attention to.
Yeah, so I am by no means an expert. I think the thing that I want to bring attention to and the thing that's kind of like blowing my mind is that the stuff that we're talking about today in terms of immigration, we were talking about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The first detention center was in 1985. So like, we've been putting kids in cages for a very long time. I feel like there's this confusion about what happens to people when they come across the border.
Yeah.
I feel like right now there's this expectation that it is kind of how it used to be, where you would like come across the border, claim asylum, and then if you were like a kid, you could go find family, like they would reunite you with family. And once the separation stuff started happening in like, what was it, 2020? COVID, I feel like, was when things started kind of like the kids in cages stuff started happening.
Yeah, it was before then, but I think it really started coming to light and being on people's consciousness probably like 2018 is when I recall folks starting to wake up to it more.
Yeah.
Because it was a policy that was enacted under Obama as well.
Because Obama was also really rough on immigration.
Yeah, he was the deporter-in-chief.
And so, like, I feel like I think the thing that's kind of confusing to me is why people think that we are not where Germany was in World War II, right? Like, I feel like there's this kind of expectation that it's going to look exactly the same. That we are going to see gas chambers. We are going to see trains. But it's 2025. It's not, it's not 1940s anymore. Instead, we're putting them in detention centers and then letting them bake through 110-degree weather without AC, without water, without like adequate medical care, right? We don't need the gas chambers anymore. We're way more efficient than that. And I think that like, unfortunately, and I think that like for me, my theory is that we know how critical immigrants are to the economy in Texas. We know. I remember, I think it must have been 10 years ago, they had done some really strict illegal immigration stuff in, I think, like Alabama, and they ended up undoing it within like 2 years because they were like unable to pick anything. Like all of the agricultural parts of the state collapsed immediately. So we know how important they are. We just don't want to pay them at all.
And we don't want to see them. That's the big thing is folks, obviously on both sides of the aisle, I'll pick on Trump because he's also a businessman running his business. But I think the issue is folks want to have, cheap labor that they can exploit. We can also harken back to Elon Musk and his whole thing about having certain visas be available for brown people so he can exploit them for their labor.
I mean, they were just, before I left Austin a couple of years ago, they were protesting the Tesla plant because brown people are getting hurt. Something that's ingrained in the economy of Texas, right? That we have brown people to exploit. Also, another weird immigration thing that I was thinking of while we were talking about this is like, nobody talks about the dreamers, right? Like one of my good friends in college, she's from Guatemala. She got her degree from the business school at UT, one of the top business schools in the world. And then she went back to Guatemala. You know what I mean? Like we took her brain, we juiced it up with all of this important information. And then we were like, oh, but we don't really want you here, and sent her back to Guatemala, which, don't get me wrong, of course we should be educating people and if that's what they want, but that's not what she wanted. She wanted to stay here and keep studying. She had built a life here. We are so focused on the racism of everything. We just can't seem to like get out of our own way. It's very frustrating.
Our idea of like when you say someone's crossing the border, it conjures a very specific image in people's minds. So I think that most people, if you ask them here in the States, would say it's someone with darker skin who
is crossing at night. They're crossing a river. There's a coyote involved that they've paid, who is like not giving them enough water. And it's literally like Diego Luna in the desert with like chapped lips. They don't picture like I crossed a bunch of borders when I went to Brazil, and it was very boring. I walked up to an official dressed in an outfit and handed him my passport, and he went. And then I went in the country, and you know what I mean? Like, that's also crossing a border.
And also crossing the border with an American passport holds a different weight.
Like, I remember growing up and hearing about people's mothers who were nurses or teachers and having to come clean houses because they weren't allowed to work as a nurse or a teacher. So we're not even using their labor to its best. We're not even using the labor well or efficiently. We have a nursing shortage and a teaching shortage.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we immediately at the border be like, you're a nurse? Go jump in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because white people don't want brown people touching them. And also I think like the other thing with Texas too is like, we want them to work, but we're just heading back to like slavery again. Because it's like, remember when Abbott said that it wasn't necessary for migrants in construction work positions to get water breaks? We have been systematically boxing in people since the 80s. We're in it. We're in the fascism. We're doing it now. We're in it right now. And if you are a white person and it's not affecting you, it's because you're either A, not paying attention, or B, you're in a really privileged position. And like, you need to be doing something. It's no longer coming.
Yes, it's here.
It's
the
now
moment is
happening.
here.
And we're going to look back in 10 years and we're going to start seeing insane numbers for the people that were killed in these detention centers. And then on top of it, it's like, who do we hire to run the detention centers? Brown people. So there's brown people committing horrible acts of atrocities to other brown people, which does their own trauma. Who are the kind of people who are attracted to those kinds of jobs? It's people who are like power.
Especially if folks
or they're poor.
Who are poor, who don't have legal representation. If something happened to you in one of these facilities, who can you report it to? Who's going to listen to you? How do you run it up the chain? And there are these, I've seen a couple of stories around things like forced hysterectomies, for example. And I think some of it is overblown, but there are also situations where folks are being made to have medical care and surgeries that they don't need and don't want and aren't necessarily educated on what's happening to their bodies.
I mean, which we've been doing to Black women.
We've been doing to Black women. And again, we see the same things. Like, for me, it's how can you draw parallels between all these other situations? I think it's very easy for us to look back retroactively and be like, South African apartheid, that was bad. We don't like that.
And then look at what's happening today and be like, okay, so here's all the things that happened then that are happening today.
Exactly.
Do we still not like it? Are we all in agreement that we don't like it? Okay, then instead of destroying the city over the Super Bowl, let's destroy the city over the immigrants, right? Like, I was insanely frustrated watching the Philadelphia Eagle fans destroy their city. I was like, where the has that energy been, my man? Like, what are we doing here? Like, go destroy the city for something worthwhile. Did you ever read Will to Change by Bell Hooks? It's my new religion in the sense that, like, her basic theory is, like, you don't have to be friends with a racist down the street, but you have to fight for his right for universal health care just as hard as you fight for your own. Because as soon as you put someone below, the cycle starts again. The cycle continues until we finally are able to all say, I believe that everyone deserves human dignity. I believe that we're all equal. I believe all this stuff, you know?
Yeah, like, you can vehemently disagree with someone, but as soon as it starts getting into, I want your rights to be taken away because I don't like what you're saying or whatever it is. Obviously, if you're committing crimes, sure, you do have, you know, rights that are restricted. But if it's just folks saying stuff, that's where I'm like, what are we doing here? Because then it flips on a dime. So that was actually something that I wanted to talk about with this, with ICE and detention centers and surveillance and whatnot. I think something that folks often miss when we think about the ways that we're oppressing people, the tools we're using to oppress them, is that all of these things that we're doing to them will be turned on us. 100%. There is a certain point at which your privilege cannot protect you anymore, and you will be the ones who are being surveilled. You will be the ones who are being detained. You will be. So I would love to talk a little bit about the detention centers and what you see the future of them being.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, they're probably concentration camps. And that's very scary. I think we are, from what I've heard and understand, based on the new executive order, we're building way more.
Yeah, so I can actually show you. So there is this group called GEO Group, and they are the largest service provider, I put it in quotes, not them, to ICE. And they announced they're doing a $70 million investment in capital expenditures to strengthen the company's capabilities to deliver expanded detention capacity, secure transportation, and electronic monitoring services to U.S. ICE. So currently they have 21,000 beds, and they are the ones who are getting these giant contracts. They're not just being used for these facilities themselves, but again, electronic monitors. So having people having to wear ankle bracelets and things like that, case management services, but also ground transportation and air transportation and all of that. So you had mentioned there are people who are interested in cashing in on this trend because it's essentially just a different form of privatized prison where you have, I would argue, like less transparency and less rights because you are a non-citizen. Yeah.
These are packed. These are facilities that were already at a breaking point that are now getting an influx of more people, right? So it's like, this is not an easy process, a fast process, an efficient process. Like, this is a place where we're trying to get people stuck. Like, we've purposely created a black hole of bureaucracy. We're putting them there. They're disappearing. It feels kind of like an extra win for the United States government that they don't have a country, right? Like, we've removed any protections they could have. And then we've trapped them in a place where it's legal for them to not have legal protections because we're not required to give them a lawyer. My fear is that because we are going after brown people, we're eventually going to get to a place where it feels like another leg of the indigenous genocide from colonialism, right? Because like, if you are a brown person in Central and South America, you likely have indigenous blood in you. That's part of the caste system that the conquistadors created, right? Like, do you have indigenous blood? Do you have slave blood? Do you have white blood? Do you have like, what is your blood? We're going to create this caste system. And the caste system never really went away, right? Like, if you go to Mexico, like, my cousins in Mexico are pretty wealthy. They're pretty well off for Mexico. And all of their friends are like, I remember in the 2000s, it was about, you know, how can we look as what else in America is wearing? How can we be as American as possible? That's what's cool. And I think that like, we really, I don't know, we really underestimate. I think my worry is that this feels just really similar to a lot of other things that we've talked about. We've talked about apartheid. We've talked about like, it's just feeling very similar. And I think part of the reason why it's been able to go as long as it has is because they don't have legal representation and in the government. It's like, there's kind of this like gap. They fell into the bureaucratic hole, you know? And it's like, I think the frustration is like, it's like I told you when we were working in tech, right? There's this expectation that we're supposed to know this information, know that it's actively happening, and then wake up the next day and just go to work. And as somebody who like grew up in a family of like teachers and nurses and house cleaners, the only people I see cleaning the tech offices are brown, right? Like, it's just this constant little reminder, like in the back of your head where you're like, where are all the brown people? That's right. They're in the back of the kitchen. They're in the back doing laundry. They're in the back. They're in the back. They're in the back. Right.
Going back to this whole idea of we want your labor, but we don't want to have to see you.
I don't want to see you.
We don't want to interact with you. Yeah.
And it's insane because it's like, that's my grandma. I look the way I do. And I think the thing that's been craziest for me as a Texan looking the way I do is like, just how comfortable white people are being racist with other white people. And I think that like, it's gotten better, I think, in Texas. Especially now that I've moved to Colorado and have seen like Midwestern white complacency. Whoo, that is a whole different level of chaos. But it's still not, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It just feels like the next level of, I just wish that we could mobilize a little more. But like I said, we don't even understand each other half the time.
It is that.
I mean, I don't want to pretend like these people were friends before colonialism because they weren't. Well, in Mexico specifically, I've been doing a bunch of research into like the Mexicas and the Aztecs and Nahuatl and all of that stuff for the book that I'm writing. I'm using Nahuatl as like my like fake language, so I don't have to make another. That whole area was slowly coming together. And like the Spanish came at literally the worst time possible.
Yeah.
Like, we now have transcripts in Nahuatl from have you read The Fifth Sun yet?
No.
I would add it to your list if you want to. It's basically the Spanish invasion of the Mexica Aztec Empire from the point of view of the Mexica people. We finally translated their transcripts. We're finally able to look at, and basically at the end of the day, it's a bunch of the things we know, but like, we turned them into savages. They were lawyers, they were doctors, they were nurses, they had advanced sewage systems, they had like all of this stuff. And we turned them completely into savages. And also,
like, they did sacrifices.
And which they did.
Yeah.
But guess what we do? We have the death penalty. We kill people too. Like, it was a very similar, like, death penalty stuff.
Yeah, and then there comes this, like, moral superiority that is associated with whiteness and Christianity in particular.
Yeah.
And how it's like, well, but we're the goodies because, God gave us this command to go kill these people. Like, okay, based on what? They're like, well, God just said it to me and no one else. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's very annoying, especially when the white people were like stinky and dumb and gross. You know what I mean? Because they were. They just gotten off of like 6 months by ship. They all had scurvy. They were like not in a good place. So it's like, I can't imagine.
And a lot of them shipwrecks.
Yeah, like I can't imagine like getting out of a ship and seeing the like Aztec city of gold. And being like, these people are savages who don't deserve this. And it's like, babe, they built it. What do we do here?
Ugh. Yeah. Like, I think we could do better. Like, I don't think we could, though.
Egyptian pyramids.
I don't think we could.
It has to be aliens because brown people could never build a pyramid.
Yeah, and there's no other possible way that they could have done this. When it's like, you understand that, like, there's advanced algebra and shit like that going on in the Middle East. And our numbers that we have.
Like the people who made our alphabet.
Yeah.
It's like, we forget. Right. We just forget. We just forget that like brown people were capable.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like,
and they are still. I mean, I think there's this thought that the U.S. needs to intervene anywhere and everywhere, and we could go down a whole different rabbit hole about that. But this sense of, we know what's best for you, so we're going to do it. When in reality, it's pretty much always just to serve our own corporate, oftentimes, interests abroad. But,
But also the flip side of that is just as problematic. Mm-hmm. Like, the reality, and I feel like one of the biggest things I took away from my international relations degree is it's too late for isolationist politics. Mm-hmm. It's too late. We are not in a place where it's like, I love when people are like, China's coming to get us. China's economy would collapse if ours collapsed. Mm-hmm. We're all integrated and indebted to each other so much now that there's no world in which we all pull back and do only, like, if we decided we were going to do that, which is of course what Trump's trying to do, we're going to see a lot less options in your grocery stores and your clothing stores. And like, you're suddenly, if you want to only live off American made products, good luck.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to your avocados. Say goodbye to bananas, pineapples. All of those things are shipped in from Latin America. Your gas prices are going to go crazy.
And also how much of our food, as you pointed out, the basic essentials of life are now outsourced. And, we can get into it. Yeah, it's too late to extricate ourselves from everyone else. And even if that was like the right thing to do. But going back, we're talking about, things are looking pretty rough out there. There's all these executive orders from Trump and on the more local level from Abbott. And we're seeing this swell of white supremacists and Nazis feeling real comfortable and feeling really good about just openly being fascists. So there's a lot of dark stuff going on right now. But I would love to know from your perspective, what are you seeing right now that's giving you hope for where we'll go from here? And are there any organizations or movements that you recommend if people want to learn more about what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so I would say like the biggest thing that you can do in your community right now is go spend money in immigrant businesses. Where is the people in your community that either have restaurants, grocery stores, and go spend your money there. Purposely spend your money with our immigrant small businesses because they're disappearing and they're like like if we don't have them, we're going to end up with Walmart everywhere. Everything's going to be Walmart. Like we need them too. But I think like right now, the thing that gives me hope is that people, I think, are unfortunately, the thing that gives me hope is that white people are starting to get affected. You know? So it's like my white friends are starting to become uncomfortable. And it's like their ideas about themselves and how not racist and good they are starting to really come into question. Like the radicalizing work that I did 10 years ago in college, they're now I can see them slowly kind of like starting to put it together. And I think that like the more we can affect white people, especially like the white elite, and make their lives harder, the better, right? So like I think like when I think there's this TikTok guy that I follow, his name is Mr. Jones, and he talks a lot about good trouble. How can we get into good trouble, right? Like it's things like a local restaurant has a ban. Okay, well then go use the men's restroom if you're femme appearing. Like how can we start to stop the people who are complying in advance and give them a little bit of trouble? Like at the end of the day, it feels like a lot of the most valuable activism is about taking a grain of sand, putting it in the well-running machine and starting to like clog up the gears, which is like, I feel like what we did a lot at, right? Like we like that mutual aid channel where we suddenly had people giving strangers they've never met before hundreds of dollars just because they said they needed it. There was no way to validate whether that money was going to someone or not. People were just sending money because it was the right thing to do. And so like once we had that channel up and running, you could see it start to kind of like click other places where it's like, well, why do we need to have a mutual aid channel at a Fortune 500 company? Why do we have people who are working full time and aren't able to afford rent? Right? Like people slowly start to have questions, and those are the good questions that we want them to ask. So I feel like if you're in tech right now, you should be working on unionizing. That would be the first thing I would be doing. There's a couple tech unions right now that I think are doing a pretty good job. Google has one. It's pretty small still, but it's happening. I've heard maybe that Apple's been squashing union stuff for a really long time. Indeed claims it doesn't need a union, but I would argue that it does. I think every corporation should have one. So I think that like if you're in corporate America, you should be thinking about how you can set up systems to help the immigrants at your company, and also just like start putting some grains of sand in the wheels. How can we start to like make things a little bit harder for the rich elite that currently right now is pretending like nothing is happening? Yeah. We need to make them feel like something's happening.
Yeah, comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
Yeah, I think the big one is the Cinco de Mayo protest that's coming. I've heard about it in a few places now, which is like we're just gonna walk out. You know, it's so funny because I remember. Do you remember A Day Without a Mexican?
You told me about it.
It was a weird mockumentary that they made in like the 90s, and at one point, one of the family members, like her white husband, disappears because he's half Mexican. Like the Mexicans, the Latinos, the people from Central and South America in your community aren't the people you think.
Yeah.
You need to start talking to people. And also I think like in general, this is just like a general best practices thing, but we need to start talking to our neighbors, like physical neighbors. We need to start talking to people.
Yeah.
And I know it sucks. I know talking to people sucks. Like I know. But we need to start making the white people uncomfortable. Yeah. And I think that like in Denver, some of the things I've been doing is, you know, like my photography focuses a lot around like queer joy and like queer resistance. And it's like, our joy is resistance. Our ability to still find joy in being around your friends and being around your chosen family and not chosen family. That's the resistance. We need more of that. So how do we bring that joy to like more people and not just like keep it for ourselves? But yeah, in general, it's like, I think we need to get into more good trouble.
Yeah, I love that. I also, one last thing, I do like the idea of a couple of years ago, there was this idea of being allies versus accomplices. I think there is the reality.
We don't need any more allies.
Yeah.
I don't need any more stickers.
Yeah, we're good on stickers. I think that solved everything, right?
We're good on stickers. I'm good on thoughts and prayers. I'm good on hashtags. None of those things have done anything.
The block square was really nice, but I think we're still having police shootings.
ACLU has a live streaming. If you download the ACLU app, You can live stream up to their cloud police occurrences. So fuck, if you're even just like around and you see somebody getting arrested, go walk up and start filming it. That's your right as a citizen. You can stand 10 feet away from a cop and film them, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
So, like, how can you use your white privilege to start making people feel uncomfortable? And I think that that's like that accomplice mentality. Because it feels like to me we're moving to a place, unfortunately, where ally isn't enough anymore.
Yeah.
Ally is the IRGs and the business resource groups and whatever that we do.
That are being dismantled.
That are being dismantled now all of a sudden because, you know, clearly they meant it, Laura. But like, I just feel like now all of these different, like they didn't work, they just parties.
Yeah. Just threw nice parties and gave us pizza.
Yeah. It's like, that's not enough anymore. It's not enough.
So last and certainly not least, is there anything about yourself that you want to promote? Things you're working on? How can folks get in touch, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm currently based in Denver, but I'm planning to come back to Austin a little bit more this year. If you want to get in touch and see some of my queer joy photography, my Instagram is S.burger. Yeah, S.burger photographer.
Excellent.
Yes. And then also you can see my girlfriend's in a band and also has a band. So if you want to listen to her music, which has a lot of my photography, I've been doing some of their like little cover release things and stuff. You can either look at Milady, which is MLADY, or Sam Paul. Those are both on Spotify. And then I'm writing a book, but it's going to be forever. It's going to be forever. Just follow my photography page because I feel like I'm doing a little bit of everything. We all have things, especially if you were born in Texas. We all have things that we're like not exactly proud of. But I think that the more we get comfortable talking about them, the more people can say, okay, like I did that as a kid, but I'm still capable of like growing up to be a good accomplice. Like I can do better. I can like show my parents and friends how we can do better. Like this is white people work.